Hi everyone, tonight we're going to do something a little different. We're stepping into the worn slippers of a woman living and working in a Victorian brothel in 1857. Sounds strange for a bedtime story, I know, but trust me, this is a history most books skip, and yet it's soaked in quiet strength, harsh choices and tiny luxuries that kept people going. You're not a duchess or a street urchin in this tale, you're something right in the middle. Real, unseen, and still here. Right now you're waking up. It's early, not glamorous early, like 5 a.m, London winter early. And no, you're not in some grand four-poster bed with lace trim. You're lying on a lumpy horsehair mattress that creaks like it's judging you every time you move. The blanket is thin, scratchy wool, and the sheet underneath hasn't been changed since last Tuesday. Maybe even the Tuesday before. It smells faintly of lavender water, but only the kind diluted so far it's mostly wishful thinking. Outside the city's already humming. The clop of hooves, the iron ring of cartwheels, a vendor shouting about fresh bread like it's a war cry. You rub your eyes, breath puffing out like smoke in the cold. The fireplace in your room is dark, it won't be lit until much later. Coal is rationed. Unless a customer specifically asks for heat, the cold is part of the ambience. The wallpaper's floral, but half of it is peeling, and the other half is probably growing mould behind your dresser. The floorboards under your bed are cold enough to shock you awake, so you stretch. First your legs tense and release toes flexing under the blanket. Your back cracks softly. You mutter, "Still alive then," which has become both a joke and a morning affirmation. Across the room, Lily's still asleep. She's breathing deeply, face buried in the crook of her arm. You share this room and this life. She's younger, newer, just 19. You're 24 and practically a veteran. You remember being new and hungry. A single candle stub on the table casts a weak circle of light. You grope for your shawl, a rough wool thing hanging from the bedpost, and drape it around your shoulders. It's warm from yesterday's body heat. That's something. Your bare feet finally meet the floor. Cold. Always cold. There's a ceramic pitcher and basin between your beds. The water is frozen over slightly. You crack the surface with your finger, instant regret. It bites your skin. You splash it on your face anyway. It's awful. It's refreshing. Your breath catches in your chest, and for a second it's just you, the sting of cold, and the steady heartbeat that says you're here. You made it through the night. You don't speak much in the mornings. No one does. The walls are too thin and people are too tired. The house, a narrow 5-story stack tucked into the Haymarket district, creaks like it's stretching with you. From downstairs you hear Mrs. Winters, the housekeeper, stomping around already. That's either a good sign or a warning shot, no way to tell yet. This isn't the worst brothel in London. Far from it. It's not a high-class place either. Those are further west with gaslighting and imported silk curtains. Your place is in the middle. Respectable enough. Clean mostly. 2 meals a day. And rules. So many rules. They call you Mary here, though. That's not the name your mother gave you. Names are like dresses. You choose ones that fit the room you're in. You've been here nearly 2 years. That's a long time in this line of work. You've seen girls come and go. Some left for better houses. Some ran off with customers who promised too much. Some just disappeared. You sit on the edge of your bed, the mattress sighing beneath your weight. Your bones ache a little, not from anything dramatic, just wear. The kind that settles in your joints and doesn't leave like the damp in the wallpaper. You roll your shoulders, stretch again, and sigh. Another day, another possibility, or at the very least another breakfast. And then, as you sit there in the dim grey light of dawn, you do something simple, you breathe. In through your nose, deep and slow, out through your mouth, a habit you picked up from Lily, who picked it up from a book one of her customers left behind. Breath anchors you, she says, keeps your mind from floating away. She's right. You wrap the shawl tighter around yourself and tip your head back against the wall, your thoughts drifting. In this quiet moment, your world is just a small room with 2 beds, an icy basin, peeling wallpaper, and a floor that could give someone frostbite if they weren't quick with their slippers. But it's your world. You're not running. Not tonight. And here's a strange fact. Victorians were terrified of catching cold through their feet. Like absolutely convinced your toes could be your downfall. They weren't entirely wrong. Cold does sneak into you from the bottom up. But you'd argue the real danger is the rent collector. You shake off the thought. No philosophy before tea. The morning is just starting and already you can hear Betsy the housemaid clattering in the hallway. She's 13. Too young for the business, thank God. She was taken in off the street last winter, and now she runs errands and helps cook. She's got a good head on her shoulders and sharp elbows for her age. There's a knock at the door. Betsy's voice, hot water, Miss Mary. A small smile tugs at your lips. Warm water means Mrs. Cartwright the madam had a good night herself. That's luck for everyone. You get up and cross to the door, cracking it open. Steam from the jug kisses your fingers. "Thank you, love," you say. Betsy curtsies in her awkward way, already turning toward the next door. You set the jug by the basin and let the warmth hit the frozen air like a minor miracle. You're here. You're breathing. You're about to wash your face with water that doesn't bite like a wolf. It's a start. The water is still steaming slightly when you pour it into the chipped basin. You don't need much, just enough to make your face feel like it belongs to someone awake. It smells faintly metallic like the pipes it came from, but the warmth is what matters. You wet a cloth, wring it out and press it to your cheeks. Your skin drinks it in. You blink, sigh and dab at your neck, behind your ears and under your arms. Quick and practiced. No one lingers long when the room's this cold. You towel off, then pad over to the wardrobe. It's more of a cupboard, really. 2 dresses for daytime, 1 for errands and 1 for looking presentable. You reach for your dark blue workday dress. It's not fancy. Slightly faded cotton neat stitches and well mended at the cuffs. It says I'm respectable, but don't expect lace. Stockings, then boots. You sit down on the bed again to lace them up, fingers working without needing to think. You've done this every morning for nearly 2 years. The repetition is a strange comfort. Downstairs you hear the familiar sounds of the kitchen coming to life. The scrape of chairs, the clatter of a pot lid, the rhythmic thump of cook's knife chopping root vegetables. Someone's laughing. It sounds like Emily, the newest girl. You smile despite yourself. Her laugh always has this bell-like quality, like it hasn't been worn down by city life just yet. By now the smell of porridge is drifting up the stairs. Oats and milk, sometimes with a bit of treacle if business was good the night before. You don't smell treacle this morning. Just plain oats and steam. Your stomach grumbles. You're definitely awake now. You brush your hair, not for beauty, but to untangle the worst of it. 100 strokes. That's for novels. You do 20. It's enough to keep it from matting and to satisfy Mrs. Cartwright's standards. There's a small mirror in your room and you check yourself in it now. No makeup yet, no performance. Just your face, a little pale, shadows under your eyes. But your lips look all right. That'll do for now. You pull on your shawl again, tie it snugly around your shoulders and step into the hallway. The carpet's worn in the middle and frayed at the edges. The gaslight hisses softly behind the glass on the wall, barely strong enough to illuminate the stairwell. You descend carefully. These steps have claimed a few ankles over the years, and you're not about to let yours be next. The kitchen is warm, always the warmest room in the house. The big black range glows softly and steam curls from the porridge pot. Betsy, setting out, bowls her cheeks red from the stove, and her sleeves rolled up past her elbows. "Morning, Miss Mary," she says cheerfully, placing a chipped bowl in front of your usual seat. "Morning, Betsy, you're up early." "I'm always up early," she says matter of fact. "Cook says I'll miss life if I sleep in." Cook, standing by the fire with her ladle, snorts. "I said you'll miss your chores, not your life." You grin and sit down. The bowl is filled with thick, slightly lumpy porridge. You spoon it up gratefully. It's hot, which is the main requirement. Flavour is optional. Lily joins you a moment later, her hair tied up in a loose knot, and eyes still puffy from sleep. She slumps into her chair like she's been dropped from a great height. "Don't say a word," she mumbles. "I wouldn't dream of it," you reply, pushing the sugar pot toward her. The table gradually fills, Emily bouncing as always. Josephine, more reserved, her cough noticeably softer today. And Sarah, precise and sharp-eyed as though she's been up reviewing ledgers instead of sleeping. She probably has. Sarah handles the books with Mrs. Cartwright. She's the closest thing this house has to an accountant, which is saying something, when most people think arithmetic is a man's job. Breakfast is mostly quiet. You don't talk business this early. It's a rule unspoken but deeply felt. Everyone eats. No judgments on portion sizes. No gossiping about clients. Just the clink of spoons, the sigh of steam, and occasionally the groan of someone stretching a sore back. You catch yourself smiling again. Not because this is some kind of sisterhood utopia, it's not. But in this one moment, it's enough to be a tired woman, with a warm porridge and other tired women around you. Sometimes the absence of cruelty feels like comfort. Outside the kitchen window, the street is beginning to bustle. You hear a street vendor calling hot chestnuts fresh today. A dog barks then too. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rings the half hour. And here's a weird truth: Victorian London had over 8,000 chimneys, and the air was basically just smoke and fog and soot-flavoured oxygen. They called it pea soup fog, like it was a charming side dish. If you made it to 40 without coughing up black phlegm, you were practically superhuman. Back at the table, Josephine says, "Do you think it'll snow?" Probably, says Sarah, sipping her tea. The air's heavy. You glance at the window. The sky is that particular white grey that threatens snow without committing. You wouldn't mind it, honestly. Snow muffles the city, makes everything quieter. Cook clears her throat. "Ladies' doctor's coming today. You know what that means." The room groans collectively. Every Wednesday morning, Dr. Harrison makes his rounds. He checks each girl, makes notes in a tiny black ledger, and reminds you that bodies are not immortal. It's unpleasant, necessary, and mildly humiliating, like most things that keep you alive. You finish your porridge and stand. Your bowl's still warm in your hands. For a second you just hold it, savouring that heat. Then you wash up. You rinse the spoon and bowl dry them with the same towel you've used for 2 weeks and hang it back on its peg. Someone should really do a laundry run. Probably you. Lily touches your arm. You going first for the doctor. You shake your head. Let Josephine go, she's had that cough. Josephine nods gratefully, her fingers curling around her teacup. As you leave the kitchen, the house feels like it's starting to breathe on its own. There's a rhythm to the day. Breakfast, doctor, chores, the scent of bread rising in the oven, the soft creak of beds being made, footsteps on stairs, the distant clatter of hooves outside. You wrap your shawl tighter and head back upstairs. The day is beginning in full. You made it through the night. You've eaten. You're awake. Sometimes that's all the victory you get. Back in your room, the water in the basin is still warm from earlier. You dip your hands in again, this time to freshen up properly. Doctor's day isn't something you prepare for like a date, but still, you'd rather not be seen looking like you crawled out of the Thames. You wash under your arms and between your legs, the routine familiar and clinical. This isn't about beauty. This is about staying employed. You change into a slightly fresher chemise one without holes. Then you sit on the bed, wrapping your shawl around yourself like armour, and wait your turn. The hallway is quiet now, but you can hear the faint creak of floorboards from the room next door, Josephine with the doctor. You take the moment to let your thoughts drift. Your gaze lands on the small chest by the window. It holds all your belongings, a hair ribbon, 2 letters from your sister that you haven't read in months, a small tin of beeswax for your lips, and at the very bottom a scrap of fabric from your seamstress days, white linen soft and fine. You keep it because it reminds you who you were before all this, a different version of yourself, hungry, cold, terrified, and still convinced you'd never end up in a house like this. But here you are. It wasn't one big fall that got you here. It was a slow descent, a string of small decisions that felt survivable until they added up to something that wasn't. You think back to the turning point. 3 winters ago, you hadn't eaten in 2 days. The attic room you rented was so cold, you could see your breath while you worked. Your fingers were numb. You kept pricking them on the needle and bleeding on the fabric. You were working on a commission for a minister's wife, a christening gown, and you'd already promised to have it done by morning. That's when Jane knocked. You hadn't seen her in a year. She looked different, full, warm, wrapped in a clean wool coat and smelling of meat pie. You nearly cried at the smell. She handed you one without a word. You remember biting into it, trying not to look desperate, trying to hold on to your dignity like it wasn't already soaked through and frozen. "There's a place," she said eventually, "off Haymarket. It's decent, clean, 2 meals a day, no cruelty. The madame's strict but fair." You didn't answer right away. You kept chewing. She watched you, quiet, kind, waiting. "You'd make in 1 night what you make in a week doing that," she said, nodding at your blood-stained sewing. You still said no that night. But the next day, when you were too weak to hold the needle, when your landlord knocked for rent and you had nothing but a half-finished christening gown and a frostbitten toe, you went looking. And here you are, almost 2 years later, fed, warm, alive. Would your mother be proud? Probably not. Would she understand? Maybe. Downstairs, the front door opens and closes. Heavy boots. A voice. Dr. Harrison's gruff greeting. Josephine's done then. You're next. You stand. Shake out your dress. Check your hair. Not for beauty, just for order. Then you step into the hallway. The doctor is already washing his hands in Mrs. Cartwright's sitting room. He nods to you without warmth, but not unkindly either. "Mary," he says, "come in." You do. The room smells of carbolic and rose water, a weird mix of clean and pretend. Mrs. Cartwright is seated in the corner with her notebook. She never speaks during these visits, but she records every word the doctor says. Dr. Harrison's fingers are cold but precise. He listens to your breathing, checks your pulse, looks into your throat. Then comes the intimate part. You lie back on the fainting couch, raise your knees and stare at the ceiling while he examines you. It takes 2 minutes, maybe 3, but they feel longer. You don't say anything, you never do. He finishes, peels off his gloves and says, All seems in order. No lesions, no discharge, nothing abnormal. Mrs. Cartwright notes it without looking up. You sit up straight in your dress and nod. Thank you. Keep drinking water, he says. You always run dry that time of year. Yes, doctor. You leave as quietly as you entered. The relief hits you on the landing. Not because anything was wrong, but because nothing was. Not this week. That's the gamble in this business. Disease is the unspoken shadow in every touch. Gonorrhea, syphilis, chancroid. Words you learned after you came here. Ugly names for even uglier endings. You've seen it. The girls who start to bleed too often, the ones who cough up blood, the ones who stop eating, the ones who disappear. That's why the doctor comes every Wednesday, Mrs. Cartwright insists. Other houses don't bother, some don't care, some can't afford it. But this house does, and so you're still here. Back in your room, you sit on the bed and exhale slowly. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Just like Lily always reminds you. Grounding breath. Present moment. You change chemises again. The one you wore is already damp with nerves and chill. This one's dry and smells vaguely of soap. Then you bundle the used one into your laundry basket and carry it downstairs to the scullery. The scullery is cold and damp and smells like bleach and cabbage. You pump water into a tin basin, add soap shavings and start scrubbing. Your hands move automatically, rub, wring, rinse, repeat. There's something oddly soothing about laundry. It's honest. Dirt goes in, clean comes out. There's proof of effort. Unlike conversation, unlike smiles. And here's an odd little fact to keep your brain company. The Victorians believed that boiling your underthings once a week prevented hysteria. That's not why you do it. But hey, whatever works. You hang your chemise on the line in the backyard. The sun is peeking weakly through the London clouds. It's barely warmer than inside, but the light is real. You lift your face to it for a second. And breathe. You're still here. You're clean. You're alive. That's something. By the time you're back inside, the kitchen smells like onions and soot, which means stew's on for midday. Your stomach growls automatically like it knows the schedule better than you do. The girls are gathering again this time in their usual mid-morning shuffle. Half-dressed hair pinned back any old way, sleeves rolled up. Corsets loosened just enough to breathe like a real human being. You join them at the long kitchen table, which still bears the faint scars of years of use-burned knife nicks, rings from mugs too hot to touch. Cook sets down the loaf of brown bread with a satisfied grunt. It's still warm from the oven and the scent of yeast hangs thick in the air. She points a wooden spoon at you. Cut it straight this time, Mary. You salute her with a butter knife and start slicing. The bread gives under your hand with a crackle steam rising in little curls. Josephine sitting across from you leans in with wide eyes. That looks illegal. You grin. Don't tell the police. I hear they arrest girls for slicing at an angle. Emily already nibbling on her crust Snickers. Only if the slice offends a gentleman's sense of symmetry. That gets a chuckle around the table. These moments quiet, absurd warm are the closest thing you get to peace in this life. A warm kitchen, a loaf of bread, and people who understand without you needing to explain. Lily wanders in next. Hair damp and cheeks pink from scrubbing the parlour windows. She collapses into the chair beside you like she's been working the docks. Window ghosts are real, she announces. I wiped the same smudge 5 times. It reappeared every time. I think it winked at me. Did it ask your rates, Emily teases? Worse, it judged my posture. You break off a crust and hand it to Lily. She takes it with a grateful groan and flops her head on your shoulder. You let her rest there. She's not one for affection usually, but sometimes the weight of another person is all you need to remind you you're still anchored. Mrs. Winters walks through with her notebook tucked under her arm. She stops, sniffs the air and nods. Good. Eat something solid before you start chores again. Mrs. Cartwright wants the glassware polished today, the sherry decanter too. A collective groan erupts from the table. She also says no lipstick on the rim this time, Mrs. Winters adds, looking directly at Emily. That happened once. Emily protests, holding up her hands. And it was rose balm, not lipstick. Rose balm with a vengeance, mutters Josephine. Despite the complaints, you all know the drill. The house runs on routine like a well-fed clock, and Mrs. Cartwright won't tolerate laziness. She's strict, yes, but fair. Her rules protect the house, protect you. And in this city where women disappear without a trace, and entire brothels are swallowed by disease or scandal, that kind of structure keeps you upright. After all, a properly run house keeps its reputation clean even when the business is anything but. As you sip your tea, strong, milky, no sugar today, you think again about something Sarah said once over supper. We're not just selling our bodies, we're selling reliability. Gentlemen like the illusion that nothing will surprise them too much. She's not wrong. That's why Mrs. Cartwright insists on clean linens, trimmed nails, fresh breath. The small things that keep the fantasy intact. The morning passes in slow cycles, wash, wipe, polish, repeat. You're in the parlour now, carefully dusting the figurines on the mantel. A porcelain shepherdess with cheeks like rosebuds. A matching shepherd who's perpetually mid-flirtation, leaning slightly toward her with a painted smirk. You imagine their conversation. "Lovely morning, miss. Lovely until you knocked me over with your elbow. Again." Quirky thought for the hour Victorians were obsessed with miniature shepherd scenes. Something about innocence and idealised rural life, which is rich considering most actual shepherds lived in abject misery. But sure, pretend you're frolicking through fields while you sip your brandy and flirt with a working girl. That tracks. Sarah passes through carrying a tray of cleaned glasses. "Careful with that one," she says, nodding at the shepherdess. "She's already lost a finger once." "Relatable," you reply. By noon the parlour is gleaming. Even the red velvet curtains look less sullen now, tied back to let in the watery sunlight. You stand near the fireplace, stretching your back. A single coal crackles in the grate, not enough to warm the whole room, but enough to make it feel less like a tomb. Mrs. Cartwright steps in just then, her black skirt swishing across the polished floor. She inspects everything with the kind of gaze that could turn lead to pearls or shame depending on the state of the dust. She nods once. "Well done. Ladies, I expect you all downstairs again by 5. We have a new guest expected tonight. Banker, recommended by the solicitor who visits on Thursdays." She says this like a weather report, cool, factual, inevitable. Lily leans over and whispers, "That means we get real coffee with dinner." You grin. Real coffee. Not the usual roasted chicory or barley blend, but honest-to-God imported beans. Possibly from the solicitor himself, who's been known to gift small bags to the girls he favours. This is how excitement looks in your world: warm drinks and maybe sugar cubes. When the chores are finally done, you trail back to the kitchen where cook is dishing up bowls of stew. Thick, savoury, speckled with root vegetables, and whatever meat the butcher was offering cheap today. You take a bowl sit and let the warmth soak into your bones. Josephine's bowl is untouched. She's picking at the edge of the bread with a kind of absent-minded motion, her eyes far away. Eat, you murmur, you'll need your strength. She blinks as if coming back from some internal fog. "I know, just tired." And older now, you see what tired really means. Not just a lack of sleep, but a kind of soul weariness. The cost of performing comfort for others when you can't even summon it for yourself. You push your bread toward her. "Take mine, I had extra earlier." She looks at you startled for a second, then nods. "Thanks." You've all shared hunger before. It never really leaves you. Even now, with full bowls and warm stew, it lingers under the table like a memory you can't shake. You eat, slowly, carefully, letting each bite settle. There's a rhythm to this too, the midday lull, the full belly, the quiet. And then all too soon the house shifts again. Boots on stairs, keys jingling, Mrs. Winters reminding everyone dinner is at 5. After that evening begins. You sigh, because you know what comes next. Time to become someone else again. By the time the dinner bell rings, you're already upstairs standing in front of your small wardrobe. You've stripped down to your underthings, a fresh chemise and your best corset, the one with the lilac trim that barely shows under the evening dresses but makes you feel slightly more composed. It doesn't cinch too tight. That's by design. You still have to breathe through a night of smiles, small talk, and pretending that Mary is your real name. You pull out your evening dress, deep blue silk, gently worn but still lovely under soft lamplight. It swishes when you walk, which clients always seem to like. There's something about the sound of silk. It's a detail, and details are everything here. Lily pokes her head into your room, half laced into her green satin, and already sporting a halo of freshly curled hair. Mrs. Cartwright wants us in the parlour sharp at 7. She's got that look. You nod, smoothing the dress over your hips. The "someone important is coming" look. Exactly that one. I think she ironed her cuffs. You both share a quiet "Uff, that's serious." Once she's gone, you focus on your hair. You pin it back in loose waves, framing your face the way Mr. Lawrence likes. Not that he's booked tonight, but you keep his preferences in mind just in case. You dust a little rice powder across your cheeks, just enough to dull the shine. A hint of rouge, a dab of beeswax on your lips. No heavy perfumes tonight, just lavender water behind your ears and at your wrists. Mrs. Cartwright always says, "Sell the dream, not the truth." The truth wears boots and snores. It's almost 7 when you descend the stairs. You can already hear the fire crackling in the parlour. Someone's adjusting the tea service. A soft clink of china. You move slowly, deliberately. The evening persona settling into place like a second skin. Posture straight. chin lifted, breathing calm and measured. The parlour is already glowing when you arrive. Heavy curtains, drawn gas lamps turned low and golden. The red velvet upholstery catches the light just enough to seem luxurious. On the side table, a decanter of sherry, fresh glasses, sugared almonds in a porcelain dish, and a small plate of shortbread. You take your seat by the hearth. Sarah is already perched on the settee, perfectly composed in burgundy taffeta, looking like someone's clever widow. Lily joins shortly, green silk catching the light as she takes her usual spot near the window. This isn't a living room, it's a stage. "Evening, ladies," Mrs. Cartwright says as she enters. She sweeps in with her usual authority, tall, composed, dressed in dark plum silk that says, "I do not work here, I run here." She surveys the room, adjusts a cushion with surgical precision, then gives a nod. Mr. Hamilton is expected shortly. Recommended by the solicitor. Banker. Quiet sort, apparently. Let's keep it polished. Which is madam speak for no nonsense, no nerves. And please no talk about your cat unless he brings it up first. You and the girls murmur affirmations. Betsy brings in tea for you, all served in proper bone china cups with matching saucers. It's more for show than comfort. You sip it anyway. Earl Grey, faintly bergamot, hot enough to burn your lip if you're not careful. Across the room, Emily fidgets slightly, readjusting her bodice. "First-timers make me nervous," she whispers. "They're always nervous too," you reply. "That's the trick. Because here's the thing about men, especially the ones who walk through that door trying to pretend it's their first time. They're all playing a part just like you. The successful banker, the grieving widower, the curious academic. And you're the woman who laughs at just the right volume. The one who makes them feel clever even when they're not. The one who knows when to pour the second glass of sherry and when to let the silence stretch long enough to feel intimate. Outside, the sky has darkened completely. The street lamps glow hazily through the fogged-up window. You hear the muffled clop of hooves and carriage wheels over cobblestones. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tower chimes the hour. 7 o'clock. The front door opens. Mrs. Cartwright stiffens, then smooths her expression into something warm but controlled. She steps into the hallway. You sip your tea. A minute later, her voice floats through the door. "Ladies, Mr. Hamilton." You set your cup down. Not too quickly, just enough to look interested, but not overeager. He steps in. He's tall, well-dressed, with greying hair, and the kind of face that's grown into its lines instead of resisting them. His overcoat is damp with fog. He carries a bowler in one hand and wears gloves he doesn't remove immediately, always a sign of nerves. You rise. "Good evening, Mr. Hamilton. Welcome." He hesitates just a moment, then bows his head slightly. "Miss Mary, is it?" "That's right." You smile just enough to imply warmth. "Would you care for some tea? Or perhaps something a little stronger?" He chooses sherry, of course. You pour it for him carefully and gesture toward the settee. He sits, a little stiff, a little too upright. You take the seat beside him, angled just so, not too close, not too far, polite proximity. Small talk begins, the weather, the difficulty finding a decent cab, something about the exhibition which he claims to have visited the week before. As he speaks, you listen for clues, not just his words, his tone, his pauses, the things he doesn't say. You note the worn edge of his cuff, the way he keeps his gloves on, the occasional glance toward the fire like he's looking for something in the flames. You laugh at the right moment, offer a refill, mention something vague about books you've read, and gradually he relaxes. They always do. Academic debate of the hour, whether men like Mr. Hamilton genuinely believe they're falling in love or whether they're just paying to be heard in a world that otherwise ignores them. You haven't decided. Both seem true sometimes. Mrs. Cartwright reappears in the doorway and gives you a small nod. The blue room is ready nod. You stand and offer your hand. "Would you care to continue our conversation upstairs?" He hesitates just a fraction of a second, then nods. "I think I would." He takes your hand. You lead him out. Behind you, the parlour resumes its quiet hum. More arrivals, more small talk. Another hour passed in the business of comfort, but right now it's just you and Mr. Hamilton. The soft tap of footsteps on the stairs, the silk whisper of your skirt, the scent of lavender and sherry in the air between you. Just another evening, another role to play, and you're very, very good at it. The blue room is on the second floor, tucked behind a heavy velvet curtain that muffles the noise of the parlour below. You push it aside and let Mr. Hamilton enter first. The gaslight inside is already lit low and flickering. It casts everything in amber and shadow, the kind of light that forgives lines and softens guilt. You follow him in and close the door gently behind you. The latch clicks. He stands awkwardly in the middle of the room, his hands still gloved, eyes darting toward the bed like it's a thing with teeth. You smile and cross to the vanity, picking up the silver tray with the brandy decanter. "May I pour you something a little stronger now?" He exhales. "Yes, thank you, just a little." You do it slowly, giving him time. Men like him often need that. He takes the glass fingers, brushing yours briefly, then retreats to the edge of the armchair by the fireplace. Not the bed. Not yet. You join him, sitting across from him in the matching chair. Legs crossed, hands folded back, relaxed but upright. You sip your own drink. It's only watered wine for you, of course, but he doesn't know that. Silence settles between you for a moment. Not uncomfortable. Not quite. "I've never been here before," he says eventually, voice low. You nod like you believe him. Most of our guests haven't, or so they say. That gets a dry chuckle. Good sign. He leans back slightly. "My colleague, Mr. Ellis, he said this place was—" He pauses, searching for the right word. "Well run." It's a strange compliment, but not inaccurate. You smile. Mrs. Cartwright does keep a tidy house. He studies his brandy glass. "I wasn't sure I'd go through with it, to be honest." "You still don't have to," you say gently. "We don't rush anyone here." That's true. One of the house's unspoken rules. Consent always, even if they've paid, especially then. Mr. Hamilton finally removes his gloves and sets them neatly on the table. "I thought I was coming here for company, but now that I'm here, I think I just needed someone to talk to." You nod. You've heard this before. Dozens of times. But each time it's different. Each man has his own shadow following him. For some it's grief. For others loneliness that curdled into something sharp. "What would you like to talk about?" you ask. He looks surprised, like no one's asked him that in a long time. "I don't know," he says. "Do you ever think about how we all just keep going, like horses blindfolded on a track? No idea what's ahead. Just walking forward because stopping would mean falling. That's heavier than expected, but not unfamiliar." You tilt your head thoughtfully. "Sometimes I feel like a clock, always ticking, keeping time for someone else. But when no one's watching, I just sit there, quiet." He nods slowly as if he understands. Maybe he does. A beat of silence. Then he says, "My wife passed in January. Consumption. We've been married 18 years. There it is." You soften your posture. Let your voice drop a note. "I'm sorry." That kind of a loss. It changes the shape of everything. "She used to sit by the fire," he murmurs, glancing at the flickering hearth. "Every night, even in summer." You let the moment hang. Sometimes the most valuable thing you offer is witness. Not touch, not talk, just presence. Eventually he sighs and finishes his drink. Then he stands hesitating by the bed. You rise as well, moving slowly. You reach out lightly, touch his sleeve. "We don't have to do anything you're not ready for. We can sit, we can talk, or just lie down. Rest." He looks at you for a long moment. Then nods. Just lie down, if that's all right." "Of course." You help him out of his coat. He removes his shoes. Then the two of you lie down atop the coverlet, fully clothed side by side. Not touching, just breathing. He closes his eyes. You do too. It's quiet, warm. Eventually his hand finds yours. You let it. You stay like that for nearly an hour, no words. Just the ticking of the mantel clock and the sound of the fire. And when he finally rises, straightens his coat and smooths his hair, he looks different. Not happier, but less hollow. He presses a folded note into your palm payment and maybe something else. You don't look at it until he's gone. "Thank you," he says. "For what?" He pauses. "For not pretending I was someone else." Then he leaves. You sit on the edge of the bed for a moment, letting the silence expand again. Then you fold the blanket back into place, check the lamp and tidy the glasses. One sip left in his brandy. Yours untouched. You don't pocket the money just yet. You leave it on the vanity while you rinse your hands in the basin. Warm water, rose soap. You're not crying, but you feel like you should be. Or maybe you already did some version of you long ago, and now all that's left is this tired ache behind your ribs. Old age wisdom of the day, grief doesn't fade, it settles. Like dust in corners you forget to sweep. You blow out the lamp and close the door behind you. Downstairs the parlour is still humming. Music is playing now, someone's wound up the phonograph. A waltz. The rest of the night waits. But for now, you pause at the top of the stairs, leaning into the banister, catching your breath. You gave something tonight. Not your body. Not quite. Something smaller, quieter, and it was enough. Back downstairs, the kitchen is dim and empty, except for a single lamp left burning on the counter. You slip in unnoticed, holding your skirts up slightly to avoid the worst of the soot tracked in from the yard earlier. The day's laundry is still hanging on the line outside, stiff now with cold. The air bites even inside these walls. Winter is moving in like a squat tenant that won't pay rent. You fill the kettle and set it on the hob, your movements slow, deliberate. You don't need tea, not really. You just need the quiet. The truth is, after a visit like Mr. Hamilton's, you always feel a bit disassembled. Like you've lent someone your spine and forgot to ask for it back. You weren't touched, not exactly, but your presence was used. The difference is subtle, but you feel it in the way your shoulders sag. So tea then, peppermint, helps settle the nerves or at least gives your hands something to do. A soft shuffle of feet behind you makes you turn. It's Josephine wrapped in a blanket, hair unpinned and falling over one shoulder. Couldn't sleep, you ask, voice low. She shakes her head, then shrugs. You? Same. She slips into a chair, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. Is it strange, she murmurs, that I miss the noise when it's gone? No, you say, pouring 2 mugs, silence is loud. You sit beside her and pass her the tea. She holds it like it's made of gold. You both sip in quiet for a while, the steam rising between you. Eventually she says, I saw Martha today. Your eyebrows lift. Martha from Bishopsgate. She's working a lower house now. Her teeth are going and she walks with a limp. That tightens something in your chest. Martha was strong once. Sharp-tongued, quick with a joke. You haven't seen her in over a year. You don't ask what happened, you already know. It happens to all of you eventually if you stay long enough. Josephine stares into her tea. She didn't recognize me at first. She will next time you say gently. She just needs rest. But even you don't quite believe that. Rest is a rare luxury in this line. More often, it's the final act before disappearing. You finish your tea and set the mug aside. We should check the laundry before it freezes solid. Right now, before the frost does. You grab your shawl and the both of you head out into the backyard, boots crunching softly on the cobbled path. The night sky is low and swollen with stars, the moon, a thin crescent hanging like a clipped fingernail. London breathes around you, soot, fog, horse dung, chimney smoke. You've lived in it long enough that it smells like life. The laundry still sways gently on the line. Your chemise is stiff now, the cold giving it the shape of a ghost. You take it down along with the others, folding them over your arm as best you can with half-frozen fingers. Josephine laughs suddenly, a sharp, startled sound. Do you remember that time the wind took Emily's bloomers and they ended up on the chimney? You smile. Mrs. Cartwright threatened to charge her for public advertisement. She would have too. You carry the last of the laundry inside. The warmth of the kitchen greets you like an old friend. And here's something odd for your brain to chew on. Victorians believed hanging laundry at night was bad luck. Something about inviting spirits to wander among your clothes. You wonder idly how many spirits must be living in your chemise by now. Hopefully ones that enjoy peppermint tea. You and Josephine part ways again with nothing more than a nod. No need for fuss. Just the soft understanding that you were both here, still real, still upright. Back in your room, the candle is low. You trim the wick and relight it, then fold the dry laundry and place it in the chest. You pause at the little piece of white linen again, the one from your old life. And just like that, your thoughts drift back to the girl you used to be. The one who believed love was something inevitable, like the seasons or gravity. That was before you learned that love, when it came at all, wore disguises. Sometimes it looked like attention, sometimes like silence. Sometimes, like Mr. Hamilton, it wore a banker's coat and whispered thank you in a voice that cracked. You brush your hair. 50 strokes, then 20 more. The old habit. The girls say it keeps your hair from thinning, and maybe it does. Or maybe it just gives you a reason to sit still. Your arms ache slightly, shoulders tight. You pause halfway through and roll them out slowly. And then, as you often do before bed, you check the windows. It's something you can't seem to stop doing. Lock latch curtain. Maybe it's leftover from those early days when you still feared a drunk customer might follow you home. Or maybe it's just the illusion of control. One final ritual before surrendering to sleep. You crawl into bed. The sheets are cold again, but they'll warm up soon. You lie on your side, listening. From somewhere in the house, footsteps, muffled voices, laughter too loud, then the closing of a door. Then quiet. Then the creak of the wood as the house settles again. You stare at the ceiling and count your breaths. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Hold. Exhale 2, 3, 4. Again. That's all you can do, really. And if you're lucky, your dreams won't take you anywhere. They'll let you stay right here, warm beneath the covers, floating just above your bones, untouched and unseen. Tomorrow will come, as it always does. But tonight at least the laundry is dry, the doors are locked, and your tea was warm. Morning doesn't so much arrive as it seeps in grey and sullen, leaking through the edges of the drapes like the city is apologising for waking you. You roll onto your back and listen. No screaming, no boots on stairs, no smashed glass from a customer who didn't want to leave. Good. A quiet morning. That's rare enough to be sacred. You sit up slowly, joints creaking like the bed frame. You slept hard, well, relatively, enough to get through the day. The candle stub has burned to nothing. Outside, the street is still half asleep. A vendor calls out voice hoarse. You catch only the word apples before he moves on. The fire in your little grate is long dead, but you pull on your robe and slippers and pad down the hall anyway. Lily is already in the bathroom humming faintly as she splashes water onto her face. You give her a wave, head to the loo, then slip into the kitchen. The room smells like boiled water and yesterday's stew. Cook hasn't arrived yet, but someone has left the kettle ready. You light the burner and settle into your usual chair, resting your cheek on your fist eyes, scanning the frost forming on the outside of the windows. Sometimes, especially on quiet mornings like this, you let your mind wander. Not to the past. That's dangerous. You wander sideways into daydreams that won't hurt you. Things like, if I left London, where would I go? Or would I like Paris? You imagine yourself in a tiny apartment above a bakery wearing a shawl that doesn't scratch and eating warm bread every morning. Of course that fantasy doesn't include rent or language barriers, or the fact that you barely have enough saved for train fare to Dover, let alone across the channel. But it's a nice dream. Harmless. The kettle whistles and you make your tea no sugar again, but a splash of milk this time. You cradle the cup in both hands and just sit there for a few minutes, breathing, letting the warmth crawl back into your fingers. Then comes the knock. 3 taps, soft, hesitant. You already know what it means before you open the door. Mrs. Cartwright is standing there, shawl-wrapped, tight, face unreadable. There's a gentleman in the parlour, asked for you by name. Your stomach tightens, not in fear, but in that alert way animals get when the wind shifts. Did he give a name? Mr. Allen. Said he's in town just the day and hoped you'd be available. You don't remember a Mr. Allen, but names are fluid here. Clients change them like shoes. You nod, give me 10 minutes. She doesn't nod, just turns and leaves. Silent approval or maybe just pragmatism. You return to your room, relace your corset, change into your day dress, deep green wool, warm but decent. You run a comb through your hair and pinch your cheeks for a hint of colour. Then a drop of lavender at your wrists. It's early for perfume, but something tells you this Mr. Allen expects polish. Downstairs, the parlour is lit, but not cosy, more formal than last night. The fire isn't lit yet, just embers in the grate. Mr. Allen is standing near the bookcase-gloved hands behind his back. He's tall, wiry, with hair slicked neatly, and a moustache curled just so. He turns when you enter. "Miss Mary," he says. "It's been quite a while." The way he says it makes your stomach flip. You smile anyway. "You'll forgive me, I meet many gentlemen, you'll have to remind me." He steps forward and removes one glove, offering his hand. "You used to call me Charles. About a year ago, I was visiting from Birmingham. You told me I talked in my sleep." It clicks. Not because of the sleep talking, but because of his boots. You remember the boots. Italian leather scuffed in a very particular spot. You remember him asking if you could read poetry to him, and then falling asleep halfway through The Lady of Shalott. You came back, you say. "I did, and I was hoping maybe we could walk just round the block. I know it's not usual." You blink. "Walking outside, that's definitely not usual." He adds quickly, "I'll still pay your fee, of course. I just don't want to be indoors today." You hesitate for only a second. Mrs. Cartwright wouldn't like it, but you can leave the house during the day so long as you're back before dinner, and something about him seems harmless. Sad, maybe. You nod. "Let me get my coat." 10 minutes later, you're stepping out into the brisk London morning with Mr. Allen Charles by your side. The cold slaps your cheeks, wakes you up fully. Your boots crunch on the icy cobblestones. Fog clings low to the ground, curling around gas lamp posts and market carts like smoke. Charles doesn't say much at first. Just walks beside you with his hands clasped behind his back. Finally he says, "My mother died last week." You glance at him. "I'm sorry. She always told me to come back and find you. Said I spoke about you in my sleep more than I realised." That's unexpected. "I think she imagined you were someone other than you are. Maybe a governess. Or a widow." You smirk. "That's flattering. I hope I behaved myself in those dreams." She said, "That girl saved you." I don't know how she knew. You walk in silence for a while, passing closed shops and sleepy horses waiting outside the bakery. The smell of fresh bread hits you. Your stomach growls and he laughs. "Would you allow me to buy you something?" he asks. You nod. He buys 2 small tarts, jam-filled, still warm. You take a bite and it tastes like something you forgot to miss. You find a bench in a quiet square, sit beside each other and eat in silence. Quirky fact of the hour, the Victorians believed jam was medicinal, especially raspberry. Something about the seeds being invigorating. You're not sure if it's working, but your hands feel warmer. Charles finally says, "I'm leaving tonight, back to Birmingham." You nod again. "Then I suppose this was our second and last walk." "Would you ever leave?" he asks suddenly. "This life." You look down at your tart, "If I had a reason." He's quiet. You know what he wants to ask, but he won't. And that's for the best. When you return to the house, he presses a small envelope into your hand. You feel the weight of coins and something else, a folded scrap of paper. Back in your room, you open it. The note reads simply, "You were kind when you didn't have to be. Thank you." You set the coins aside and keep the note. Some things are worth more. After Charles leaves, the house feels too full again. Not with noise necessarily, but with the quiet weight of everyone's routines folding back into place. The parlour hums with murmured conversations, the sound of slippers brushing over rugs, the occasional pop of a coal in the grate. You feel it all pressing in around you like you've slipped back into a coat still warm from someone else's body. You head upstairs to reset the blue room. It's your turn today. Each of you takes a floor, and since Emily is still recovering from whatever stomach nonsense she picked up last week, she blames the meat pie from a street vendor. We blame her decision-making, you're covering hers. The blue room is as you left it, a neat, soft, slightly perfumed from the lavender sachet tucked under the pillow. You pull back the coverlet, shake out the sheets, smooth them with the palm of your hand. Everything in this room exists to calm, to soothe. Even the mirror, slightly tarnished, reflects only what people want to see. You empty the basin, replace the towels, wipe down the mantle, fluff the pillows. Resetting is part of the job, but it's also a ritual, like cleaning away evidence that anything real happened here. By the time you're done, your arms ache in that familiar way that's more about repetition than effort. You stretch your neck, roll your shoulders, and head back downstairs. The kitchen is quiet but warm. Cook is out fetching potatoes, and Betsy's nowhere to be seen. Probably helping Mrs. Winters count linens or mend someone's hem. You put the kettle on again. Tea is always the answer, even when it's not the question. As the water heats, you pull out the little envelope Charles gave you. You open it again, finger the edge of the note, the coin folded into the corner. It's a guinea, more than you expected, enough to buy a coat, or send to your sister. You won't, of course, not yet, but you place it in the hidden seam of your mattress where you keep the rest of your quiet plans. There's a knock at the back door, 3 sharp raps. You frown, that's not the usual delivery pattern. You answer slowly. It's George the errand boy from the grocer's, 15 all elbows and shaggy hair. "Got a parcel for the lady upstairs," he says, thrusting it toward you, and a note. You blink. "Which lady?" He shrugs. "Didn't say. Just said for the one who reads." Then he runs off before you can ask another thing. You glance at the note, no name, just, "Thought you might enjoy this? A friend from Wednesday night." Inside the package, a book. Old leather-bound, a little frayed at the edges. Tennyson, Idylls of the King. You smile. That could have only come from Mr. Hamilton. He must have sent it after he left. You turn it over in your hands like a secret. Then you tuck it under your arm and head upstairs. Up in your room, the bed's unmade. You set the book down and begin smoothing the sheets. Then you slip under the covers, fully dressed, the book open beside you. You read a few lines. It's about Arthur and Guinevere, something tragic and noble and confusingly romantic. You're not sure what you believe about love anymore, but poetry feels safe. Nobody's ever tried to buy your company with iambic pentameter. The clock ticks softly on the mantel. You're almost dozing when a knock comes at the door. It's Lily Hare up in Pin's cheeks, still pink from scrubbing. "You coming down?" she asks. "Mrs. Cartwright wants the blue room ready again by 6. Gentleman from Ireland." "I just cleaned it." "She wants it redone. Says he's fussy." You groan, "Of course he is." You rise again, book in hand, and place it on the nightstand. Lily notices it immediately. "Ooh, another present." You nod. "From the quiet one, Mr. Hamilton." She raises her eyebrows. "Not the worst sort of gift. At least it's not soap or licorice again." You both laugh, remembering the man who once brought an entire crate of hard candies and tried to hand them out like party favours. "Do you ever get tired of being grateful?" Lily asks suddenly. The question catches you off guard. You sit on the edge of the bed, grateful. For the small things, a warm bath, a kind customer, a book. We get crumbs and pretend it's cake. You don't answer right away, because she's not wrong. Sometimes it feels like your entire emotional range has been rerouted into some weird gratitude funnel. Thank you for not being cruel. Thank you for not hurting me. Thank you for leaving quietly. But then again, maybe the crumbs keep us alive, you say at last. At least there's something. "Still crumbs," she mutters. "That's fair." You both head back down to the parlour. The lamps are already lit. Sarah's at the writing desk sorting appointment cards. Josephina's reading legs curled under her face unreadable. You polish the decanter, straighten the chairs, move the curtain just enough to let in the flicker of the gaslight from the street. The performance is about to begin again. And here's your academic phrase of the day. One could argue that the true transaction in brothels is not the body, but time and emotional labour repackaged as intimacy. It's not just about flesh. It's about making someone feel like they matter, even if only for an hour. Lily gives your hand a brief squeeze before heading to her side of the house. You watch her go, wondering how long she'll last here. How long any of you will. Dinner is light soup and bread, nothing fancy. Mrs. Cartwright is in a good mood, wordless approval that seeps into everything. Even the tea tastes better when she's pleased. After dinner you slip back upstairs to check your face in the mirror. Just a touch of powder, rouge, a single pin to secure your curls. The door creaks open again. Emily this time. She peers in and says, "Did you hear someone saw Martha again?" You stiffen. Where? Near Lambeth, she's begging. The silence that follows is thick. "Did you speak to her, you ask?" Emily shakes her head. "She looked right through me." You nod once. Maybe she didn't recognise you. Or maybe she didn't want to. The room feels colder now. You close the door after she leaves and sit on the edge of your bed, suddenly exhausted. Not physically soul-tired. That kind of weariness that creeps into your bones when you realise how easily you could disappear. But then your eyes fall on the book. Still there, still real. You pick it up again, open to the page you left. And you read. Because for now, words are still yours. By late afternoon, the sky has begun to blush the faintest pink grey, a false promise of beauty, in an otherwise grimy London evening. You tug on your shawl again and wrap it tight, preparing to slip out for the only errand you actually look forward to each week, the walk to buy pins and paper. It's your secret pleasure, the paper especially. You hoard it, fold it, write half letters you never send. Mostly you buy the kind with a faint floral border, or pale blue pages that remind you of washed skies and better moods. Mrs. Cartwright lets you out just after 4. She trusts you. You've earned that. You don't disappear, don't come back drunk and never talk to policemen unless you're spoken to first. You have your rules, same as she has hers. The streets are slick with mist and coal dust. Horse hooves clatter nearby as a carriage rolls past carrying someone important enough not to walk. You watch the wheels spin for a moment, then press on. Beneath your boots, the cobblestones are uneven old bones of the city always shifting. A woman selling flowers calls out from a corner, "Violets." Fresh violets for your sweetheart. You smile but don't stop. You reach the little shop on Fleet Street tucked between a tobacconist and a bookseller. The bell tinkles overhead as you enter. The air is warm and smells of ink and starch and something vaguely cinnamon. Mr. Parrish, the shopkeeper, looks up and gives a brief nod. "Miss Mary." You return it with a smile. "Afternoon, Mr. Parrish." Still hoarding the good pins behind the counter. He chuckles, only for the deserving. He hands you a small tin without being asked. Inside, silver sewing pins, sharp and perfect, nestled like soldiers. You also select a few sheets of paper, one with tiny birds along the border, another pressed with faint lavender scent, and tuck them into your satchel. As you turn to leave, your eyes catch a small jam tart under a bell jar on the counter. It's dusted with sugar, and something inside you softens a little. "Go on," Mr. Parrish says. "They're fresh." You hesitate only a second before nodding. He wraps it in wax paper and hands it over like it's a holy offering. Back on the street, you duck into a narrow alley to eat it quietly. The pastry is still warm, sticky with blackcurrant sweet enough to make your eyes flutter closed for a moment. It's not love, but it's something. And here's a weird little truth from your week's reading: Victorian women weren't supposed to eat in public. It was considered unseemly. A proper lady was expected to consume all her meals in private, delicately and invisibly, as though her body's needs were shameful. You naturally are delighted to break that rule at least once a week. You chew slowly, luxuriously, a rebellion in 4 sticky bites. As you wipe your fingers and rejoin the bustle of the street, you pass a window with a faded help wanted sign and pause. Not because you want the job, it's for a kitchen maid at a boarding school, but because sometimes you like to imagine your name in someone else's ledger, just to see how it might feel. You arrive back at the house just before sunset. The lamps are being lit along the street, each one sputtering to life like a sleepy eye. Inside, the warmth hits you immediately, along with the sound of Emily laughing too loud in the parlour. The gentleman must be early. You slip off your shawl and hang it by the door, then move to the corner of the kitchen to hide your new paper before anyone else spots it. It's not that they'd steal it, but they might ask to borrow a sheet, and you're not made of endless charity. Josephine appears with 2 apples in her apron. She tosses you one without comment. You catch it and sit down at the table, biting into it with a satisfying crunch. "You smell like sugar," she says. "Jam tart," you reply. She grins, scandalous. You grin back, utterly. Dinner is quick stew again, thickened with barley. You eat without conversation, just the scrape of spoons and the occasional clatter of a dropped fork. Afterward, the real work begins. You're on light duty tonight, meaning no appointments unless someone specifically requests you. You've earned a break, so instead you help prepare the rooms, light the lamps, set out fresh towels. Upstairs you pause in the hallway and listen. A man is laughing in Lily's room. Her voice follows low, honeyed practiced. You move on, not wanting to hear more. Down the hall you check the guest bathroom, stocked, clean, still smelling faintly of carbolic soap and rose petals. You strike a match and light the small lamp above the mirror. For a second your own reflection glimmers there, half-lit and ghostly. You lean closer. "You still look like you murmur to yourself. "Just weathered." Your old age wisdom for the night skin remembers. Not just sun and wind, but touch. Even the touches you didn't ask for. Especially those. You leave the bathroom and head downstairs again. Sarah is setting out tea in the front room. Not for guests, for the girls. The halfway tea, as you call it. The one you drink around 10 when your corset feels like a vice and your heels have declared mutiny. You sit beside her and pour your cup. The porcelain clinks gently against the saucer. Sarah eyes your posture. Charles came back, didn't he? You nod, briefly, and he left me a book. Her eyebrows rise slightly. Better than a ring. Easier to pawn you, Ed, with a dry smile. Sarah chuckles. Then the parlour door opens and another guest is ushered in. She rises with a sigh and disappears. You sit alone for a moment, sipping tea that tastes of cinnamon and clove. You close your eyes and let yourself drift. Not sleep, not really, but a kind of waking rest. When you open them again, it's nearly 11. The house has quieted again. You stand, stretch, and head back up to your room. You pass Betsy in the hallway, arms full of fresh linens. She nods as you pass. Night's winding down. You nod back. We made it through. Inside your room, you take off your shoes first, always the shoes, then your dress, your corset. One pin at a time from your hair until it falls loose around your shoulders. You sit at the small desk with a fresh sheet of paper. You don't write anything yet. Just smooth the page with your palm and breathe. Because this moment is yours. Evening preparations begin long before any gentleman rings the bell. After tea and the last slice of brown bread, you head back upstairs. It's nearly 5 and you can feel the house slipping into its other skin, the one stitched together with scent and silhouette, with perfume and lace. There's a shift in the air, like the quiet pause before a performance. No one says it, but everyone knows it's showtime. Your corset lies draped across the back of the chair. You eye it with suspicion, then resignation. It's been mended twice this month, but it still creaks like an old carriage door. You step into it, pull it up, and begin the familiar contortionist's act of lacing yourself in. Lily appears in the mirror behind you, already halfway dressed, her pink chemise barely covered by a dark green bustle skirt. Need help? You don't answer, just turn and lift your arms. She tightens the laces with quick, practiced hands. Not cruelly, but firm enough to shape you. As she works, she hums some little tune about sailors and secret gardens. You let your head drop forward, bracing against the vanity. There she says at last, giving the final knot a tug. Now you can't breathe. Perfect. You laugh, wheezing slightly. Can't wait to flirt with a lung capacity of 2. Who needs lungs when you have décolletage? Fair. You pull on your dress, next your second best one. The good one is drying near the grate after last night's brandy incident. Tonight's is still fine, dark blue, low-cut, trimmed with faded ribbon, that still catches the lamplight just so. You brush your hair, pin it back with combs, and apply a little more rouge to your cheeks. Perfume then. Just behind the ears, jasmine tonight. The cheap kind, but you stretch it by dabbing it onto your inner elbows where it lasts longer. You study yourself in the mirror. The woman looking back at you is both familiar and not. She's a version of yourself that exists only between dusk and dawn. You think of her as an actress, or perhaps a decoy. The real you, whoever she is, stays safely tucked somewhere under the stays and powder. Downstairs, the lamps are being lit in the hallway. Mrs. Cartwright's heels click sharply as she inspects the front parlour. She adjusts a curtain here, a cushion there. She nods to herself. The tea set is out. The clock is wound. The wine glasses are polished. Everything sparkles the way she likes. You enter the parlour a few minutes later and take your place. Sarah is already seated by the hearth. Josephine stands near the bookshelf, pretending to skim a volume of Byron, her lips moving like she's memorising something. No one speaks yet. The guests haven't arrived. And until then you all wait in the hush of performance. Mrs. Cartwright peers in, gives a sharp nod and vanishes again. Moments later, the bell rings. You all straighten barely perceptibly, shoulders back, chin lifted, eyes soft. Emily answers the door. Voices murmur. Boots echo on the wood floor. Two men enter first, well-dressed, both mid-30s, clearly city men. A third follows older, thinner, with a moustache so perfect it looks lacquered. You rise, smoothly smile. Good evening, gentlemen, welcome. Introductions begin, most names half real. You are Miss Mary. Josephine becomes Madame Elise again for the night. Emily answers to Clara this week, her rotating alter ego. The older gentleman takes your hand and kisses it. Charmed. You say that like it's a secret, you reply. He laughs. Perhaps it is. Conversation begins. Someone pours wine. You take only a sip more for show than taste. The glass is cold in your hand, the rim freshly polished. The younger men are talkative. One boasts about railway shares, the other explains how he's moving into gaslight investment. They're not unpleasant, but they're eager in that way men get when trying to impress women they don't think they're supposed to respect. You nod. You laugh softly at their jokes. You offer comments that make them feel clever. But you're not paying attention to them, not really. You're watching the room, tracking movement, listening for Mrs. Cartwright's cues. She manages it like a conductor signalling with a nod, a glance, the twitch of a fan. Eventually the older gentleman gestures toward the hallway. Miss Mary, might we speak privately? You rise, smooth your skirt and offer your hand, of course. He leads you to the second-floor reading room. It's quiet, warm. A single gas lamp hisses softly above the mantel. He turns to you. May I sit? You nod, please. He sits, then says nothing for a long moment. Just watches the fire. Finally he says, my wife died in April, 30 years married. You blink. That's not what you expected. I'm sorry. She was kind. Not always gentle, but fair. She made me read poetry out loud, even when I didn't understand it. You smile faintly. That sounds like love. He chuckles. It was something close. He looks at you, eyes clear but tired. I didn't come here for what the others come for. I understand. I just didn't want to be invisible tonight. That strikes something deep, something dangerous. You sit beside him, fold your hands in your lap. You're not invisible, you say. He exhales like someone unclenching after a long time. Thank you. The rest of the hour is gentle. Conversation, some laughter. He touches your hand once briefly. You offer warmth, not heat, and that's all he needs. When he leaves, he presses 2 coins into your palm along with a whisper. Keep reading poetry. You return to the parlour just in time to catch the end of a joke from Emily, which makes one of the young men laugh so hard he nearly spills his drink. You take your seat again. No one asks where you were. Everyone knows not to. Later, after the men leave and the house is settling again, you return upstairs. You unpin your hair, unlace your corset, wash the rouge from your cheeks. Then you sit at your desk. You take out a sheet of the good paper, the one with tiny birds at the edge, and write just a line. I think tonight I mattered. It's not for anyone. It's just for you. By midnight, the house is humming like a warm engine. The parlour's fire is down to a sleepy glow, the wine decanter half full, and the air carries a mix of lavender tobacco and something powdery, like an old theatre after closing. You're still in costume, still in character, and your cheeks ache from smiling. You let your hand rest lightly on your teacup, still half full, still untouched. The front door opens again. Another round of boots. This time a louder group, the kind that doesn't enter with hats in hand and voices soft. These are clubmen, city boys from dinner at the Reform Club or drinks on Piccadilly. You can smell the brandy before you hear them properly. Mrs. Cartwright's eyes narrow the tiniest bit. She doesn't like surprises, but she steps forward and greets them anyway, her voice crisp and pleasant. You and the girls rise smoothly as they enter the room, adjusting around their noise like a corset being laced tighter. 3 of them. Mid-40s, ruddy faces, coats too fine for their behaviour. One is smoking a cigar. Another already has a wineglass in hand. The third, the one in the brown cravat, lets his eyes linger too long on Emily's hips before choosing his chair. The noise they bring is sharp. They talk over one another. They shout when they laugh. They call you dear and sweetheart and make the jokes that are only half jokes. You brace yourself. You choose a seat across from the cigar man. Not because you want to, because you must. You've always been better at dealing with the loud ones. You keep the tension off the younger girls. He's already halfway into a story about a banker, a dog, and someone's ruined coat. You laugh politely at the right moment. You sip your tea. Next to you, Josephine tucks her feet under her and leans slightly away from her assigned man, her smile frozen in place. You know that expression. You've worn it. The man beside you leans closer. You're quieter than the others. I'm only loud when paid to be. He bursts out laughing. God, that's brilliant. What's your name again? Mary. He raises an eyebrow. Just Mary? It's enough. He lifts his glass. To Mary, it's enough. They all cheer. The girls toast as well, smiling like they mean it. You've learned how to play this kind of night. You keep the tone light, the jokes breezy, the touches brief. You keep the room from tipping over, because if it does, it's you who will have to pull it back upright. An hour in, the men finally begin to settle. The cigar is stubbed out. The stories get slower. One of them asks if there's music, and Emily obliges by sitting at the pianoforte in the corner and playing a simple lilting waltz. You tap your fingers against your knee to the rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Do you dance, Cravat Man asks you. Only when no one's looking. He grins. What a waste. You smile but don't answer. You're tired. Not just physically soul-tired again. The kind of tired that can't be fixed with rest. The kind that builds up like soot behind your eyes. Later, as the men begin to pair off subtly but clearly, you see Emily slip her hand into her gentleman's and guide him upstairs. Lily follows suit. Josephine gets up more slowly, her smile dimming but still there. You remain behind, clearing the tea tray when Mrs. Cartwright enters quietly. Nothing for you tonight, she says. That's all right. You've done enough. You nod, grateful. The worst kind of work is forced intimacy. At least tonight you escape it. You head toward the kitchen for a final cup of water, but pass the guest room first and hear a raised voice. Then a thud. Then silence. You stop. Mrs. Winters is already moving past you. Lips tight, her keys jingling softly. She opens the door and steps in calm and professional. A moment later she re-emerges with Josephine behind her. Her hair is mussed. Her expression is flat. He was drunk, Mrs. Winters says. Too handsy. No harm done. But there's always harm done. Josephine doesn't say anything, just brushes past you toward her room. You follow without asking. Inside, she sits on the bed and begins to unlace her corset with trembling fingers. You kneel beside her and take over the task. Neither of you speak for a long time. Finally you say it's over now. She nods. I know. Old age wisdom of the night, just because it ends doesn't mean it didn't happen. Or hurt. You help her change into her nightdress, pull the covers over her shoulders and blow out the lamp. She grabs your hand just before you leave. Will you stay? You nod, slip off your shoes and slide under the covers beside her. The two of you lie there quiet, warm. She falls asleep fast, her breathing evens. You stay awake a while longer, staring at the ceiling. The city hums outside the window. Somewhere a dog barks, a cart rattles by, a drunk sings to himself 2 streets away. The house creaks softly, settling like a woman sinking into a too small chair. You close your eyes. Just a few hours more. Then it begins again. The morning after a club night always feels like a hangover, even if you didn't drink. You wake early, not because you want to, but because the air in the house is buzzing with the quiet tension of aftermath. Doors opening too gently, footsteps tiptoeing instead of tapping. Someone's crying softly down the hall, though you can't tell who. You don't ask. Josephine is still asleep beside you, one hand curled near her face, her breath slow and steady. She didn't say anything when she climbed into bed last night. She didn't need to. You were there. Sometimes that's enough. You slip out from under the covers and make your way back to your room. Your dress is crumpled on the chair, your hairpins scattered like fallen stars on the vanity. You wash quickly, cold water, sharp soap, and the kind of scrubbing that makes you feel like you've peeled off yesterday's skin. Downstairs, the kitchen is already warm. Cook has started breakfast, fried bread, eggs, beans. You help set the table. There's comfort in the clatter of crockery, the scent of coffee. Lily stumbles in, hair loose, wrapped in her shawl like a cocoon. She groans. That man had breath like a fishmonger's dustbin. You grin. Romantic. She pours herself a cup of coffee and drinks half of it in one go. Romantic's overrated. I'd settle for decent hygiene. You eat together, laughing in that half-hollow way that women laugh after war, not because it's funny, but because the laughing is necessary. Emily joins you both, looking exhausted but content. Mine wanted to read poetry aloud. You glance at her. Tennyson. Worse. Browning. He kept stopping to ask if he was doing it right. I nearly shoved the book in his mouth. Quirky fact of the morning, Robert Browning's wife, Elizabeth Barrett, was a far more famous poet in her lifetime. She once refused a marriage proposal via letter, until she was sure he actually liked her and her work. Sensible woman. After breakfast, you and the others rotate through the bathrooms, wash basins and linen bins. Club nights always leave the house slightly off-kilter, like a stage after the curtain falls. The parlour still smells like cigars and brandy. One of the lampshades is singed. No one admits to that. You open the windows, sweep the ashes from the fireplace and reset the cushions. The quiet feels earned today. Around noon, Mrs. Cartwright gathers everyone in the front hallway. She's wearing her navy blouse, the one she only puts on when something official is about to happen. "We've been asked to receive a private guest this evening," she says. "One of Mr. Allen's colleagues. Polite, generous, particular." Everyone pretends to be interested, but we all know what she means: high-paying, low tolerance. The sort of man who doesn't like to be contradicted and prefers his conversation with exactly 2 jokes and 1 compliment. Mrs. Cartwright looks at you. "He's asked for Mary." "Of course he has." You nod. "I'll be ready." The rest of the day is yours. You walk to the post office and pick up a letter one you sent to yourself 3 weeks ago, because sometimes having mail is its own comfort. You read it slowly on the bench outside a pretend letter from a friend in Devon, describing sea winds and wildflowers and how the chickens keep escaping their coop. You fold it neatly and tuck it back into your coat pocket. You stop by the bakery too, 2 coppers for a roll filled with hot jam. You burn your tongue and don't mind. You return just before dust cheeks, flushed heart steadier than it was this morning. You spend an hour getting ready. Hair brushed, pinned, brushed again. A touch of kohl. New stockings. Corset slightly looser than usual. Mrs. Cartwright gave quiet approval for that. "He likes softness," she said. The guest arrives at 7 sharp. He's tall silver at the temples and dressed like someone used to being listened to. He carries himself like a man who thinks control is a virtue. But his eyes are tired. Really tired. You can see it before he even smiles. You greet him in the front room, offer tea. He declines. "I prefer silence," he says softly. You don't speak again until you reach the blue room. Inside, he sits on the edge of the bed and exhales through his nose. "I've been in meetings all week," he says. "I've had to pretend to care about railway investments and German tariffs, and whether the port in Bristol can handle more grain shipments." You sit across from him and wait. "Do you know what I want?" "No," you reply truthfully. He rubs his hand across his face. "To sleep. Just sleep. With someone breathing beside me." You nod. You rise and unlace your boots, pull back the covers, lie down on the far side of the bed, face the wall, say nothing. After a long moment, he climbs in beside you. You feel the weight of the mattress shift the tension in the air thinning. He doesn't touch you, but after several minutes his breathing evens out. You lie there awake, staring at the cracks in the plaster. And here's your academic debate phrase for the evening. Can a profession based on performance still create genuine connection? Or are all emotions within it inherently transactional? Lying beside this man, hearing his breath soften into sleep, you realise you don't know the answer. But maybe it doesn't matter. Not right now. You fall asleep sometime after midnight. You dream of the sea, not the real sea, just a painted version, calm, endless, without wind. When you wake in the morning, the man is already gone. A note rests on the pillow beside you. "You reminded me I was still human." You read it twice. Then you fold it carefully and tuck it into your drawer next to the others. There's a rhythm to this life, and by now it beats through your bones like second nature. Morning wake, midday lull, twilight anticipation, and then the long, strange ballet of night. And sometimes, in that soft space between routine and memory, you forget how odd it all is, how impossible it would sound to your past self, the one who once thought lace was something sacred, and clients were just gentlemen callers like in the novels. Today you wake with a chill. The window's cracked again, maybe from last night's storm, maybe from time itself. London doesn't fix itself, it just weathers. You wrap yourself in your shawl and shuffle to the stove. The tea tin is nearly empty and the milk's turned. You wrinkle your nose, then laugh softly. Typical. Downstairs, Mrs. Cartwright is in a particularly brisk mood. She's pacing the hall, organising the week's accounts with that sharp precision of hers, jaw clenched like a soldier holding the line. She pauses when she sees you. "Mary," she says, and gestures you over. "Tonight's special." You raise an eyebrow. "Special how?" "Inspection." Your stomach drops just a little. Not fear, just annoyance. Inspection means government men, possibly police, maybe a doctor from the health board. All very proper, all very fake. "Will they speak to us?" you ask. "No," she says flatly. "They'll observe, maybe ask a question, don't say more than needed." That's the Cartwright rule. Don't volunteer, don't elaborate, just smile and vanish. The last inspection was 6 months ago. You remember it well, 3 men in long coats, one of them coughing the entire time like he'd been cursed. They'd sniffed at the curtains, peered under beds, and nodded a lot. Then left. It's all about appearances, keeping licenses, staying ahead of gossip. So you prepare. The linens are ironed. The guest room's aired. The fireplace in the sitting room scrubbed till the ashtray shines like silver. Everyone gets a fresh dress. You go for the dark plum one. It makes you look serious, but still soft. Respectable, in the way they like. Emily puts on her church face, the one she used to wear for her vicar father. Josephine doesn't bother, she's past pretense. Lily, surprisingly, is humming. You watch her pin a small flower in her hair, something wild and yellow, and you wonder if it's defiance or denial. By 6 the men arrive. 3 of them. Long coats just like before. Clipboard, ledger. One of them wears glasses so thick you can barely see his eyes. They don't introduce themselves, they don't remove their hats. They nod at Mrs. Cartwright, who leads them through the house like it's a museum. You stand at attention in the parlour, hands folded neatly, ankles crossed just so. They murmur to one another in that condescending tone officials use when they think you won't understand. You understand perfectly. One of them asks, do all the women sleep separately? Mrs. Cartwright answers smoothly. They have their own quarters, yes, unless a guest requests otherwise. The man jots something in his book. You wonder what he writes. Do you become a line on a form, a tick under clean linens or no visible disease? They examine everything, the pantry, the lavatories, the medicine shelf. Eventually they come to you. The man with the glasses studies you like he's choosing wallpaper. How long have you worked here, he asks. You smile faintly, a while. Do you consider the house orderly? You keep your voice flat. Yes, sir. And the clients, do they treat you with respect? You pause, not long, just enough. Yes, sir. He writes something down. You don't ask what. They leave an hour later after sipping tea and declining biscuits. One of them lingers by the door, pretending to adjust his coat. You brace, but he only says, you're all quite polished. Not like some others. You smile, teeth clenched. We do our best. He nods and walks out into the dusk. The door closes. Everyone exhales at once. You peel off your gloves and drop into the nearest chair. Polished Emily mimics in a high-pitched voice, as though we're floorboards. Or Fruit Josephine mutters, looked at, sniffed and graded. You all laugh a little. It's hollow, but it helps. Dinner is late that night. Cold meat, boiled potatoes, silence. Then comes the slow return to normal. Josephine disappears into her room. Emily heads to the laundry. You help Lily fix a seam in her bodice. She leans against your shoulder as you stitch. I thought about running away this morning, she says quietly. You don't stop sewing. Where to? She shrugs. Somewhere quiet. Maybe the coast. You nod. Sounds nice. She rests her chin on your shoulder. Would you come? You pause, then answer honestly, if I thought we'd make it. She doesn't reply. Later in your own room, you unpack your satchel. You'd nearly forgotten about the new stationery you bought. One sheet has violets pressed into the border. You run your fingers over them, then pick up your pen. You write another letter. This one to no one in particular. Maybe to yourself in 5 years. Or to the girl you were 5 years ago. You begin. We're still here, still breathing, still ours even when it doesn't feel like it. You write until the candle burns low, then fold the letter, tuck it under your pillow and lie back. The house is quiet again. The city's noise is just a hum in the distance. And here's your odd truth for the night Victorians feared silence. They believed too much quiet could lead to madness. That's why even the smallest homes had ticking clocks or creaking pipes, to remind them they were not alone. Tonight you're thankful for the ticking. It reminds you you're still here. The final day came without ceremony. No bang, no telegram, no dramatic monologue in the mirror. Just you standing by the parlour window staring at the drizzle as it gathered on the glass like breath, and realising you were done. It wasn't a grand conclusion. It was a tired one. A stillness in your chest that whispered, you've seen all this before and you can't see it again. You told no one that morning. You helped Josephine sew a torn petticoat. You braided Lily's hair. You shared a pear with Emily on the stairs, laughing when it turned out to be mostly bruises. You smiled at Mrs. Cartwright even as you tucked your few belongings into a worn satchel during the lull between breakfast and inspection. You took only what mattered, the book from Mr. Hamilton. The folded notes from Charles and the man who thanked you for making him feel human. 3 hairpins that never bent. Your pressed paper violet stationery. A coin you'd saved from your first week polished smooth by handling no longer spendable but still yours. You wore your second best dress, the one with the stitched ribbon near the collarbone. You didn't want to go looking desperate or over-glamorous. You wanted to leave looking like someone who had somewhere to go, even if that was only a story you told yourself. When you reached the kitchen door, you paused. You looked around one last time. The stove still smelled of the last night's stew. The cracked teapot had somehow survived another month. The same list of chores pinned to the wall by a bent nail. None of it would change. Not really. You slipped out into the drizzle, pulling your shawl tight. No one saw you go, or so you thought. 2 blocks down at the edge of the market square, you heard the sound of boots behind you. You turned. Lily stood there, hair damp, a folded paper clutched in her hand. She didn't say anything. She just offered it to you. You unfolded it slowly. It was a note, no signature, just whatever comes next, make it yours. You looked up. She was already walking away. You didn't cry. Instead, you took the long road, past the fruit stalls, past the canal, past the shops where you once bought pins and mints and stationery to give yourself the illusion of a future. You didn't have a destination, not yet, but you had a direction. That night you rented a room above a bakery. The bed was small, the window faced a brick wall. But the sheets were clean, and the woman at the front desk called you love without irony. You made tea on the iron stove, the water boiled slowly, it smelled like freedom and rust. You sat at the table, unfolded your stationery, and began to write. This time not to anyone in particular, but to every girl who might ever feel like she's made of mirrors and velvet and smoke. You wrote. You're not a story someone else gets to tell. You're not a sigh in someone else's mouth. You're not a candle waiting to be burned down. You wrote until the candle flickered. Then you folded the paper and slipped it into the drawer. That night you slept deeply, not because you were safe, not because you were free, but because for the first time in years the house wasn't watching. The house didn't need you anymore, and more importantly, you didn't need it. In the days that followed, you made slow progress. You read aloud in the bakery between customers. You taught yourself to sew better hems. You learned how to walk without flinching at every loud footstep behind you. You earned coins from odd work, tucked them into the same stitched seam of your new mattress. You wrote letters you didn't send. You burned some. You kept others. One Sunday you sat by the canal and saw a girl in dark plum dress walk past with a man too old for her. You didn't stare. You just nodded once when she glanced your way. She nodded back. It was enough. You may never know what happens to Lily or Josephine or even Mrs. Cartwright. Maybe the house is still standing, maybe it's not, but you'll carry their names with you stitched into your history like lining. And here's the final old age wisdom of this tale you will always carry where you've been. But it doesn't have to carry you. You turn the page. Start again. You are not finished. You're just elsewhere now. And that perhaps is the truest ending of all. Conclusion. So that's it, love. You made it. You walked the cobbled streets with me. You felt the stiff corsets and the soft hours the laughter layered over pain and the small stubborn joys that bloomed where they weren't supposed to. You kept me company through fog and firelight, through teacups and late-night letters and men who forgot how to be gentle. And maybe now you understand this story wasn't just about brothels or perfume or lace. It was about survival, the kind that's quiet, the kind that doesn't ask for applause, because sometimes surviving means knowing when to smile and when to stop, when to lace the corset tighter and when to finally unlace it, when to stay and when to leave while the rain is still soft on your shoulders. And now if your room is dark and the fan is whirring, I hope you're breathing just a little deeper, just a little slower. Maybe you feel it too, that hush at the end of something honest. So wherever you are, Tokyo, Tulsa, or tucked under your blanket in some quiet corner of the world, thank you for being here with me tonight. Now close your eyes, and remember, you're still here, still breathing, still yours,